I need to build an authentication system for an app I'm trying to create. I'm using Django for the server-side stuff and React for the front end, but there's kind of an issue. I suck at React. I think that's normal for a developer, at least, that not knowing everything, so this is a chance for me to up my skills. Because if I learn it for no reason, I end up forgetting everything, so this is a perfect time to try it. So before I start, I did research a lot on React authentication. You can use session-based authentication or JWT tokens. Is that how you say it? It's JWT tokens. Well, but the thing about JWT tokens is that it's, from all the tutorials I saw, it's all stored in local storage, which isn't the best case thing when a user can access the token used to authenticate them. And there was a solution to fix this, which was storing the tokens in HTTP only storage access. This means that the JavaScript can't access the tokens, but it's used in the server side stuff. But the thing is, I couldn't find a solution, and it's too long. I can't be asked to do it. So then I went back to my roots, which was session-based authentication in Django. So the way the session authentication system works is that you request a CSRF token from the server to the client side, and then when you're sending the password and username back to the server, it sends a CSRF token with it, and then the server basically validates it and also authenticates the user, checks whether you have an account on the system or you don't, and then sends back either I think it was a 400 response or a 200 response status code, which just means you're good, you can basically access it, and then it creates the session. And basically that's like the dumbed down version of it, because I've got a pea-sized brain. That's how it's gonna work. That's how I understand it. So we can start developing now. So I feel kind of odd if I haven't made a simple homepage or navigation if I'm making a web app. So before I do authentication, building the login form, I usually need some navigation built. It's weird for me. So the first thing I did was make a simple homepage using Chakra UI and got some illustrations from Undraw and IRA Design to make it look nice and professional. Let me just say, designing is a nightmare for me, so I'm not that great at it. To build the form, I used pre-built components from Chakra UI to group form inputs and error alerts, which stopped me from worrying about how a button should look and keep everything organized in terms of design. At first, I used classes to build the components for the form, mainly due to the fact I didn't have a proper understanding of hooks and function components. But the moment I understood hooks, oh my god, did that make life so much easier. Not gonna lie, there were some things in building forms that I didn't realize was a thing. An example would be that I didn't realize that keystrokes weren't detected without having a handle change. It wasn't too hard to understand, so I got over it pretty quickly. Once I finished making a decent enough form, I use a use effect to get a CSRF token from the server, which protects against cross-site request forgery and needs to be passed for every form that's posted to the server. And then I created a handle submission that first calls the handle validation method, which checks whether both fields have been filled. If that's the case, it returns true, otherwise it creates an error message and returns false. Most of the field validation is taken care of by Django once the form's been submitted, which is nice, but it is good to have an understanding of it. A little side note, I remember in uni I created so many validation functions in PHP to take care of user inputs now. Now I have the framework to handle that. Now then, the returned response from handle validation is checked in an if statement. That's when I used Axios to make a HTTP post request which contains the email, password, and the CSRF token to the server to authenticate the user. If successful, it redirects the page to a protected view, otherwise it returns a 400 response with an error message. Simple enough. The backend which I'm using Django REST framework for has the URL endpoints that the Axios request calls to. So as you can see here, these are some of the URLs that I'm using. And if I show you the view, the CSRF token, which basically gets the token for the front end with the use effect, and then we've also got the login view, which authenticates the user with the form data. As you can see here, it gets the data, loads the data, gets the email, password, checks whether the email exists, authenticates the user, checks whether the user exists, and then it returns the login and then returns a JSON response. The logout view, which I still haven't implemented yet, and also the still authenticated view, which checks whether the user is still authenticated. I haven't done that mainly because I'm trying to understand how I can apply use context to share data between components, and then the application can tell whether the session's still active. That's it.